And we're live on Book Chat Live. And this
Hello.
week we have the amazing author, Jeyla Briar. Is it Jeyla Briar? This is one
Yes.
I should have asked you how your surname for. I was going to say Jeyla Blair, and then no, it's Briar.
Well, I mean, it's a pen name, so Blair works too. No, just kidding.
You
no.
and Blair on
Yeah, it's Briar.
Tuesday. Yeah. And I had the pleasure of meeting you at 20 Books to 50K last year, I believe.
Yeah. Are you going this year? I wanted to ask you that.
No, I'm not. Well, at least
Oh,
not at the moment.
okay.
It's probably not. So anyway,
That's fine. I was
let's
glad I
talk about.
met you.
Are you ready to talk about books?
Yes.
Shall we go on to the first one?
Mm-hmm.
This is where. Press the wrong button. Here. The Hike, a novel by Drew Magary. So, why'd you pick this book?
All right. So this is probably my favorite book right now, between this one and one of the other ones on your list. I'm not one for like the old classics nearly as much. I know I shouldn't say that as an author, but this one's a little bit newer. I think it came out in 2017.
Yeah.
And it's like a modern day portal fantasy, and it's a Odyssey. Essentially, it's essentially a modern day retelling of the Odyssey, but it's a little funny. It's it's kind of like, and it's dark too. It's like a dark fantasy. It's kind of like if you um it's kind of like the main character gets lost in a Grimm's fairy tale a little bit and then goes on
Oh,
an odyssey. Yeah, it's really cool. If this was a genre in itself, I would read almost nothing but this type of book. The closest I can get is a lit RPG, you
yeah.
know. So I do read those too. But so okay, so I wanted to tell you, this is kind of a nerdy thing that I did, but for each of these books I came up with a marketing copy, so like one-liners.
Oh, okay. Well, that
So
works well for me, actually, because I can use
yeah.
it in the stuff
Okay.
later on.
Yeah, I figured. Okay, so this is for this one. If Homer's Odysseus was a dude from New York that got lost in the woods, or for fans of Grimm's fairy tales who wanted a bit more humor and a talking crab.
Oh, okay. So two for the price of one.
Yes,
And,
I got a couple. I had fun with it. I really did.
yeah. And is this similar to the genre you write, or is this just the genre you like?
It is very similar to the genre that I write, actually.
Yeah.
It's essentially contemporary
Yeah.
fantasy, so it's modern day, and it's essentially people getting lost in a fantasy world, and it tends to be dark. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of horror trappings.
Okay. Well, should we go on to the next one?
Yeah.
And 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. So, why
Yeah,
this
this
book?
one's my second favorite, or
Oh, okay.
I mean, it might almost be like equal to The Hike.
Yeah.
Not all the books on my list are my favorites, but
Yeah.
these two definitely are. So this one's like a murder mystery with a twist. Um, Essentially, the investigator relives the day from like the day of the murder from 8 different characters,
Yeah.
and he's looking through clues through their eyes, and he lives their day. So I tend to get bored pretty quickly with like traditional mysteries, but this one was so unique that I was just glued the entire time. It's essentially a mystery plot with another mystery plot with trappings from traditional mysteries, science fiction, and fantasy. And so here is my marketing copy for these ones. Um,
Yeah.
First one is Agatha Christie meets Quantum Leap in this traditional mystery fantasy adventure combo. Or the marketing agency quit when they learned that they had to market this book because, damn, it has everything.
So, like you say, so the premise is that the guy goes into the heads of these 8 people?
Yeah.
Then is that the
Very
way?
Quantum Leap white. Like, I don't know if you remember the show
Yeah, I
Quantum
do.
Leap. Yeah.
I'm old enough to remember Quantum
Yeah.
Leap.
I watched it a lot as a kid. I love
I
that.
know
And then
it
I
was
watched the
really
new
good.
one too. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that was a new one. I never saw any of that.
Yeah,
But
they have a modern retake.
yeah,
People are mixed about it, but I
yeah.
like
Well,
it.
that's the trouble with a lot of modern ones. So, why is it 7.5 deaths? Then is there like one, or is
Well,
that a
so part of
spoiler?
the title is the mystery. So if I tell you, it's going to be a little bit of a spoiler. Is that okay?
Oh, okay. Don't do it
Okay.
then.
Okay.
Don't do it. Don't. Well, I mean, people have spoiled books, but it's usually. I think it was Somebody spoiled a book, but it was like a book from like 1960 or something. So I was kind of like, well, if you don't know that it's
Yeah,
happened
this
now,
one's a newer one. I do
yeah,
think the reason that I picked it up was because of the half death. I was like,
yeah.
that's interesting. Why is there a half death there? Yeah.
So, and Evelyn Hardcastle is the victim,
Yep.
presumably.
Yep.
It'll be even more interesting if it wasn't. So,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
really cool. I highly recommend this book. There is a lot of, obviously he's hopping from head to head, so you
yeah,
also have to like hopping from head to head, right? Like so if you're not into going from character to character, then don't pick this book up. You're going to get confused. But if you are into that and you like the interesting mystery spin, you should definitely check it out.
yeah. Well, I was thinking, maybe I should write a mystery because I always like these murder mystery things, but I've written enough other genres badly, so
Hey, mine is going to be badly too. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm trying to write it really well. I'm trying.
yeah.
But I
Okay.
like to put mystery in mine as well. I do. Like
Yeah,
I want to have a mystery in every single one of them. I
yeah,
I start when I started reading. I first read mysteries as a kid. So
yeah. Well, when they're done well, mysteries are fantastically interesting. Trouble is they're not done well a lot of the time, but when they are done well, they're really impressive.
since you told me, I think you told me when we met that you had done some time travel stuff. You might
Yeah.
actually really like this book. I would strongly recommend this for you.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
the whole kind of because I
it
suppose
has the feel. It's
recently it's got time travel because it's going to go back to the beginning. Presume is it all like
there.
um
There's an aspect to it. It's not quite your
yeah.
traditional time travel, but there's a good aspect to it.
Oh, okay, right. Should we go on to the next book? It's a bit more
Yes.
uh well, not mainstream. Right. Coraline by Neil Gaiman. So, is this your third favourite book then?
No. No, so the rest of them are just books I really like that I think it would be interesting to talk about.
Oh, okay,
Like I
right.
do love Coraline. I do.
Hmm.
It's a children's horror and a portal fantasy, and the main character Coraline, she wants another family, and her wish is granted, but not the way she wished it would be. It turns and like my favorite part of the whole like story and the movie, if you've seen it, is the is Other Mother.
Yeah,
She's kind of like the monster in the story, and she's got this really cool aesthetic. It is a creepy book. It is, but it's a children's book, but like even for adults, I think it's creepy. Like I was creeped out by it, but I really enjoyed it. Um, so okay, all right, marketing copy for Coraline.
yeah,
The monkey's paw meets Narnia in this terrifying children's story,
yeah,
or Alice in Wonderland in a haunted house, or for fans of It's a Wonderful Life who wanted more haunted house horror.
yeah. Well, I'm not sure about the last one, but the other two are
I
good.
know I'm having fun with it.
Yeah.
She does want a
Uh,
different, like she wants a different family, right?
yeah. So, like, for anybody, I mean, I think I know what portal fantasy is, but it's portal fantasy is basically where it's a door into another world within the book. I will
Yeah.
guess, which is a
You'll
fantasy kind of realm. Is that how you would say it? Is
Yeah,
that
you
just, uh,
you find like a portal that goes somewhere else. Essentially, Neil Gaiman does a lot of that stuff, and Coraline finds essentially it's like a little portal in the house. It's like maybe it might not actually be a portal, but she finds a
yeah,
little door that takes her to a little different world, and that's what it really is going from one world into another world.
yeah.
You cross the portal. So
So,
I think it
yeah,
could have a broad interpretation depending on how you view it. But if you're viewing it as only portal fantasy, where a person steps through a little door, then you could look at it that way too. And Coraline meets that criteria.
yeah. So Narnia was kind of the OG portal
Yes,
fantasy, I guess.
it's the founder. It's not on my list, but it is the founder of Portal Fantasy. I'm certain of it.
Yeah. Well, last week somebody had the last book in the Narnia series, which I never heard of. It was apparently very dark, so it's kind of
Whew, sounds right up my alley.
yeah. I think I might have read the first one, but I didn't read any later books.
Hmm.
Anyway, shall we go on to the next book?
Yep.
Right, here we go. The Stranger Upstairs, a novel by Lisa M. Matlin. So,
Yes.
why this one?
This is probably the most recent book on my list, I believe. I believe.
Yeah.
It's a haunted house horror. And the best part of this book. Now like, it's not a perfect book, but the really shining star of this book is the main character. She's explosive. She's like, she'll keep you in the book for a very long time. And there's a really decent twist at the end. The middle does tend to drag a little bit.
Okay.
Which I know I'm not supposed to say. I'm not supposed to put like books where the middle drags a little bit, but I think this book is still worth reading. It's just if the author had done a little bit better payoffs for a haunted house story, they were a little lackluster, and I think that's why it made it drag. But her twist at the end makes it close to worth it, and the character is really good. She can't carry the whole story, but she's worth. The main character, I think, is why she got a book deal in a way, because it's just explosive. It's really good. She's essentially an influencer, very, very like snappy and sharp. So and like I said, this is her first book, Lisa Matlin. I think she's gonna write some really, really good books in the horror genre. So. Okay, so marketing copy for this one.
Okay.
If your least favorite influencer bought a haunted house and went crazy, or for fans of Kylie Jenner who would also like to see her get a haunted house or live in a haunted house.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, they probably, you could probably write a book about an influencer going on a haunted house and thinking it's all, wow, it's going to be easy, and then it all goes horribly wrong. And anyway.
It's an exciting ride, That's exactly what happens, and it's an exciting ride, and the end's not predictable. So for that alone, it's worth reading.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to the next one, which has even got its title in. Well, it's got its title in the thing I cut and pasted from Amazon. Dungeon Crawler Carl, a LitRPG game adventure by Dinniman. I meant to say it's got its genre in the title, and I just said it's got its title in the title, which didn't make any sense. So
yeah, I've seen a lot of indie writers, they'll put the genre in the title. And it helps improve their searches or something like that. I don't know. I might try it. Who knows? Although, like, I'd have to say, like, dark fantasy adventure or something like that. But nowadays, dark fantasy seems to mean like spicy.
Well, I think but
anyway,
fantasy something like that, yeah.
I'll rant about that later. We're going to talk about Dungeon Crawler Carl. So this one is obviously, like I said, is a LitRPG. It says it on the screen, and it's the first in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. Essentially, in it, the Earth is destroyed and humans are forced to compete in a televised death match with a lot of different layers of dungeons that they go through. Because I think the first book has 2 dungeons, and then each book after that, maybe 1 to 2. So it's what I want to point out is this is really good on audio, like really good on audio. If you've ever heard of Sound Booth Theater, they made it into not only an audiobook, but they have an audio drama in their own app, and it is phenomenal. If you were gonna consume LitRPG, I would go to Sound Booth Theater and look at what their selection is for audio dramas. They do an amazing job with this one. I should mention the maturity level on this series is a bit lacking. So if that's important to you, you might want to skip it. It's not important to me, but I mean, there's a period joke in the 4th book that I find hilarious, but it is gross. Most people don't want to hear that.
So as in, like, it's a bit teen frat boy, frat girl.
There's some jokes that are easy. The easy, like, kind of like a little bit gross kind of jokes. My marketing copy explains it all, right?
Okay. Well, do the marketing taglines then.
Imagine if your 12-year-old brother wrote about playing video games with his cat. Read this if you're into foot sex stuff and video games.
Oh, okay.
I'm serious. Or Deadpool without pants meets dungeon crawling video games in this incredible LitRPG adventure.
Yeah. And so now I'm going to say the obvious question, because there will be some people who are like, what the hell is LitRPG? It's a role-playing game. But obviously, you're not really... Is it about somebody who's writing about somebody in a role-playing game kind of situation?
Yeah.
How would you describe what LitRPG is?
Okay. So primarily you are in a story that has progressive elements like a game.
Yeah,
And that's what Gamelit actually means is you're in a progressive game-like storyline. The lit RPG aspect of it gets a little bit more in the weeds to the mechanisms of how you might level up in that book or in that game, right? So you'll have talk about the interface or how you're going to put points into a certain character or a character trait, right? And so that's what the lit RPG aspect of it really gets into the weeds of. I'm not always a fan of the that aspect of it because I
yeah,
think but I'm really into the aspect of the progressional game stuff. So Gamelit is super exciting to me. Dungeon Crawler Carl isn't too heavy on the points. I mean, sometimes at the beginning of the books, they'll go a little bit more into what's in his inventory and what he's going to level up to. And a lot of lit RPG like readers, they love that. I mean, if you're a
yeah,
gamer, you love the strategy of figuring out all that stuff. So that kind of that genre really appeals to that aspect of the readers.
yeah. Okay. It's a long time since I've done any kind of role playing stuff, like about 30 years. And then it was kind of like, it wasn't fashionable then, now it's fashionable. Well, ish, I suppose.
Yeah, ish. Yeah, I don't know. I'm enjoying it. I don't consume tons of it. I've read
Yeah,
the Land series by Aileron Kong. Um uh it's a good story, but a lot of like a lot of the lit RPG stories are not really inclusive of like women readers. They seem kind of
yeah,
like they're really two-dimensional women characters, and I kind of like having a strong female character, at least one. They don't. I mean, it doesn't have to be about being a strong female character, but treat them as a real person, right? Like Dungeon Crawler Carl, it doesn't have that problem. It's a little
yeah.
immature, but it definitely, the characters are rounded out, and one of the main characters is a female. Two of them are actually.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, while you were doing that, I suddenly realised I'd missed the book, but I've added it back in again. So nobody would know. So, right, here we go. Go to the next one. Carrie by Stephen King. So,
Okay. So this is probably the most classic on my list, I
yeah,
think. And it's one of my favorite. I recently reread it, and so that's how it made it back on the list. Um, I think the book is way better than the movies, and there's been multiple movies and like series. I think it's just more like as me, I can more easily relate to the characters in the book if I read it.
yeah,
And then also in the book, he leans a little bit more into the sci-fi, evolution aspect of it. Like there's like newspaper clippings of like Carrie and her evolving and stuff like that. Like so Carrie's actually like an advanced human. And it
yeah,
really answers the question, what if the kid you bullied in school was the first to start evolving with telepathic superpowers? That's the one person you don't want to have
yeah,
superpowers. Um, so kind of merges that the horror of coming of age and getting your period with getting telepathic superpowers, and it's terrifying, right? It's horrific. So I got marketing copy for this too.
oh, okay.
Imagine if Jane Grey from the X-Men was bullied as a child and now she's taking revenge. Or a story that proves that puberty and superpowers don't mix. Or a story that proves your period truly is horrifying. Yeah,
Yeah,
in the book, he really leans into the fact that she's becoming a woman. There's that
yeah,
whole blood symbolism. It's, you know,
yeah.
awesome.
There is a whole kind of just saying. I suppose you could have added vampires, but like that's always
Hmm.
in. But
True.
I always get this mixed up with Christine or whatever the car one. And I'm not even sure that's Stephen King, but
I've only seen the movie. I haven't read the book, but I have the book, so I'm going to read it.
yeah. Well, I haven't. I've only read a few of his books. I read his time travel one.
Oh, the 11. Was
I
it
can because it's US date format. I can never remember it. It's like
11
11,
22 63 maybe?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
I really
and
enjoyed that.
what's the ending of this book like? Because these endings can be a bit
Abrupt.
weird, like not very good at times.
It's definitely weird.
Yeah.
But I think because this is his first book on the market, it's a little bit more comprehensive. You feel like fulfilled with it, right?
Yeah.
At least I did. And it's intense. I mean, like it's a lot like the movie. She blows up everything and
Yeah.
then she dies. And then but in the
Oh,
book they have
well, I'll say not spoil it, but I'm sure
oh,
everybody.
it's again 1970s,
Yeah.
right? And it's a movie. So
Yeah.
I feel like this is safe space.
Yeah.
But yes, yeah, oh yeah, she goes wild. It's I mean, she's borderline a slasher, and she blows up the entire town with her telepathic powers. um and then yeah, she dies at the end. And then also but in the book, which is a little bit different, they do a recap. And
Yeah.
they do like they actually visit what happens in the aftermath, where they call together a council. There's court cases, there's people, they and he shows it in like newspaper format of what
Yeah.
happened afterwards.
Oh, okay. So it sounds like a good ending for a change.
I enjoyed the ending.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. I have to say, I love this title. I found puppets living in my apartment walls. I found horror by Ben Farthing.
All
No
right.
idea what the book's like, but the title was amazing.
It is very, very well written. The title makes it seem like it might be funny. It's not funny. It's terrifying. um, I found this author. I can't remember how I found him. But he has a whole series on I Found Horror, which really appeals to me because I like the idea of like it's a similar to like the portal fantasy aspect where you're exploring and you find something, and that's what this series does. Is his main character is exploring something and they find horror.
Yeah.
I would say for this one, it was the first. I think this one might be the first in the series. I'm not sure. There's another one that could be, but it's one of the earlier ones in the series at least. I think it's hold on, I have some notes here. Okay. So yeah, and the title really says it all about what it's about. A guy finds some puppets living in his apartment walls, and he explores them. I do wish that this story had an epilogue because it's so well written that I want to know more. But it's a horror story. You don't always get like more. They want to leave you with that discomfort. This is the one where I want an epilogue. And so I've got marketing copy for this one too.
Yeah. Okay. Fire away.
Stephen King's fairy tale meets Sesame Street.
Oh, yeah.
If Barney and Friends was a horror flick, or if Cookie Monster preferred humans to cookies.
Yeah. So, yeah, it just sounded a bit. How long is it? Is it a long book or is it?
No,
short
it's it might be less than 80,000 words. I don't remember how many pages it is. It's pretty standard, or a little bit less than that, maybe. Maybe actually it might be less than 80,000, like way less. It's short, but it's good.
You know, well, I always prefer short books because I've got terrible attention span in it. Audio books I can listen to long ones, but reading long books I'm terrible at. Even though
Me too.
I run a show about reading books. Okay, let's go to the next one. Lucky Numbers, a small town horror story by Elliott Dahle.
I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
This one is a short. I don't know where it falls in between short story and novella. It's 46 pages long. I have a question for you. Do you have lottery in the UK? The lottery?
We do, yes.
Okay. All right. So this will make sense. Essentially, it's a horror story that kind of explores the concept of these small towns always somehow getting the winning lottery ticket. Here in the US, we like to talk about, and I don't know how true this is because I haven't looked at the statistics by myself, but everybody, whenever you hear of who won the lottery, the big one, right? You always find it's some small town in the middle of nowhere. And so it kind of explores that. And it's essentially a couple and their relationships on the rocks, and they discover that there's a small town that has a really large statistical advantage on winning the lottery. And so they go to this town, they go get a lottery ticket, and what ensues is complete horror.
Yeah.
um, so marketing copy was a little bit difficult for this one, but I did find one, and I don't know if you have the show in the UK, but it's called What We Do in the Shadows. Do you know what that is?
No,
It's
but
it's a it's like a vampire reality spoof. Anyway,
oh,
so my marketing copy is What We Do in the Shadows for lottery enthusiasts, but scarier.
ooh, so yeah. So it's one of those. It sounds like you'd spoil it if you gave too much more away. Is that kind of correct, or just
What?
hard
Say
to
it again.
describe? Would it spoil it to give too much more away
I can
about
give
what
more.
happened?
I can give more. It might sport because it like I said, it is a very short story.
Yeah.
But when they get to the small town, they indeed win the lottery,
Oh,
and they find out that it's a trap.
yeah.
Is that
Okay.
good?
Yeah, that
Okay.
works. That works okay. Okay. Well, the next book I seem to have left off the Amazon carousel on Amazon Live, so that's not ideal. I counted them up and missed off Carrie on here, and I missed off this book on the next one. But anyway, let's carry on. So, How to Cook and Eat the Rich by Sunyi Dean. Which sounds
This
interesting.
one is my favorite short story.
Oh, yeah.
It's done in second person. I don't know if you've read much done in second person.
Not really,
Um,
but like,
yeah. So essentially, a salesperson comes to your door and has a gift for you, and it's like a bunch of recipes and some meat, and you are a rich person who has requested very very high end meats.
yeah,
Yeah. And so since this is so short, again, I don't know how much. I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but it's very worth reading, and it's a short read. It's I think 99 cents on Amazon. Um, totally worth it. Or you can find it. You also can find it for free if you Google the name. But why it's my favorite is because it's horror and it's done in second person, and it hooks you kind of like a salesperson might, because
yeah,
the person talking to you, the reader,
yeah.
is a
Second
salesperson.
person, yeah. And I'm guessing there's an element when it says "eat the rich" that the meat that they're talking about is not necessarily particularly normal meat.
Yeah, I kind of wish if you ever read the story, you would kind of wish they named it something else, because that title is too. It gives it away too early.
It's just right in the title,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's right in the title.
It's like if they called the last Star Wars film "Palpatine Lives." Yeah,
Yeah, like it's giving away the end of the story for the most part. But
yeah,
like if you didn't see the title, you would be like gripped to it, right?
yeah.
At least I was.
Oh, was it just sitting on your Kindle then or something? And you were like, "Oh, what's this? I'll read that." Is that the
So
kind
I think I was looking around. Okay, so I was looking around on I think Twitter, and I found this author, Sunny Dean. She's actually in the UK. She wrote Book Eaters,
right?
and I think I was following her for something, and she had posted that like this short story had come out,
Yep.
and so I was like, you know what, I'll read it, and I did. And then I kept on coming back to it because on Twitter sometimes authors like to talk about the effectiveness of second person, how nobody likes it, and all this other stuff.
Yeah,
This is a prime example of how you can do it well. You might, in fact, you don't even know that it's second person when you read it to start. I had to think real hard about it.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of my thing about second person. Is like, what kind of situation? I'm guessing it is in this idea of the conversation. Somebody's having a conversation with you,
Yep,
which
you
is
specifically. Yeah,
yeah, and yeah, that's kind of
yeah.
yeah. I suppose that could be interesting. That's
I
like
It is. I mean, it's like I always equate second person to choose your own adventure.
Yeah,
Stories like you do this, you do that. Like you don't really get any freedom in How to Cook
yeah,
and Eat the Rich, but you are the character. You know.
yeah. Okay, shall we talk about um, something in your second person? So let's do this. You wrote this Death and the Rainbow Empire by Jeyla Briar, which again I haven't got on the carousel on Amazon, but that's because it's got its own
It's
little link.
upcoming. That's for sure. Yeah. I the whole goal was for it to start going live at the end of
Yeah,
August, but I have a page up now, and the first chapter's there.
yeah.
If your listeners don't know, everything on Kindle Vella, the first 10 chapters are free.
Oh,
So
okay.
for every story,
Yeah,
um, and so it's kind of more of this like episodic, um, weekly or biweekly chapters. And I've written in this format before, and this is actually my story here is actually going to be it is a novel, um, and I plan on releasing it as a novel. But I really like the idea of episodic chapter to chapter,
yeah,
focusing on each chapter as this episode should be interesting in itself. And so if
yeah,
you go and you release a book on Kindle Vella, I wonder, I kind of want to experiment with it and see how it shapes the book and how it makes me divide things in certain ways, and how I can experiment with pulling people from one chapter to the next. And so my first series, this is going to be a series, is going to all come out on Kindle Vella to start. And
yeah,
so what it's about, it's also a modern day portal fantasy, kind of like the
yeah,
hike or a lot of the other ones I mentioned. My main character is essentially going to get trapped in a old 90s inspired school supply factory. I don't know if you guys had Lisa Frank in the in the UK when you were younger. So in the US we had school supplies that were very girly
yeah,
and like unicorns and bright neon colors and stuff like that. And we were really excited about getting our school supplies from Lisa Frank. So this factory is inspired by Lisa Frank school supplies. Anyway, my main character gets trapped in it, and it's dangerous, and it's got a lot of horror trappings and progressional elements like and mystery in it. So maybe let me explain it in a way like my marketing copy.
yeah.
If Scooby Doo's Velma was trapped in an abandoned 90s style school supply factory,
Okay.
or, and this is for my gamer fans like people who game, for fans of Diablo who wanted a bit more whimsyshire.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever played Diablo, but it's kind of an
No, but
ongoing joke in
but
it.
I've heard of it. I was just thinking, I didn't read the title out, did I? Because I've got
Oh,
waylaid with the Amazon. So for
yeah,
the
you did. You read it?
podcast, did I? Okay.
Yeah, I
Well,
thought
I'm
you
going to read
you
it
said it.
out again anyway. Death and the Rainbow Empire by Jeyla Briar, and
Yeah.
it's available at Kindle Vella in late August is what I've
Mhm.
also put. And also we've got the thingy page, which is
Oh, yeah.
amazon.com/dp. Oh god, BODCBA, or you could just search for Death of the
Death
oh,
in the Rainbow Empire by Jayla Briar. You
yeah,
can find
Briar.
it in
Oh,
Kindle
just
Vella.
Jeyla Briar,
Yeah.
Jeyla Briar, even.
Not Jayla Blaine, guys. Jayla
Yeah,
Briar. So,
Briar, yeah.
yeah. All right.
So anyway, so the way that it Bella works is it kind of a chapter a week then that people are getting in August? Is that the way it's going to work?
So the author gets to choose the frequency. And
Yeah,
so a lot of people will do two or anywhere between 1 to 3 chapters a week. I'm starting with one,
yeah,
just because I I overanalyze my writing like a lot of authors do. You
yeah,
know this, right?
yeah. I know, I
So
know.
I'm starting with one with the goal to move up to twice a week. Yeah.
Yeah,
Most
and
of it's actually already written.
that's
Uh,
good.
yes, it's mostly written. It's just I'm going through editing as I'm releasing it, and then
Yeah,
getting feedback. I really like the idea of feedback and seeing people's behavior, right? How far they get into the book before they stop. I think it's
Yeah.
a good way to kind of gauge that stuff. We'll see. I mean, it might be a terrible thing. Like some other authors probably like right now, like for what I'm doing, but I'm gonna give it a shot. You know.
And once you've done it all, are you going to take it off Vella and release it properly? I mean,
I am gonna release it properly, but I don't think I'm gonna take it off of Kindle
yeah.
Vella. Um,
Okay.
I'll keep it as like the whole. The plan is for the whole series to start out there. And I will be releasing like early chapters potentially on my own site, not for
Yeah.
free, like a Patreon thing, but you know
Yeah.
that's for when I have readers who want
Yeah.
to see early, right?
And obviously, like paperback and hardback and everything, they're not going to get in Vella anyway, so
Mm-hmm.
you're always going to be able to do that.
Yeah, and it probably won't be the same exact version. Obviously, there might be some changes between the physical book or the ebook and the Kindle Vella version.
Yeah. Okay, so I usually ask people 2 questions after the end of the show. First question is, and we've got a few books here. I know I used to ask people which book would you recommend of this list of books if you had to met somebody, but now I've upgraded the question. I've upgraded the question in recent shows.
Okay.
If you met somebody, what sort of questions, what sort of decision tree logic, how would you work out which of these books to give the person? Like, what sort of questions would you ask them to work out which of these wonderful books to give them?
Well, I mean, you got to start with if they're like, I think what I would first ask is if they were into sci-fi or fantasy, because if they say no, none of these books are probably going to work. Nah, I don't like fiction. Okay, well then I have no recommendations for you right now.
Read your book then. Yeah.
But if they did, I would ask them what they've been reading in those.
Yeah.
You know, a lot people can at least name one of them. Now, if they start naming like, oh, I read Lord of the Rings, I'm like, okay, well they probably haven't read in a while.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just just wing it. I'll say read The Hike. You know, that one's my favorite.
Yeah.
But if they're reading something more modern, like if they even mention LitRPG, I'll just talk to them for a long time. I would recommend Dungeon Crawler Carl, but chances are if they like LitRPG, they probably already read that one. I mean, that one's probably the most popular in the genre right now. So
I mean, also, I mean, if somebody didn't like fantasy or sci-fi, but there's quite a lot of horror in these books, isn't there? It's like, I mean, Carrie's not necessarily fantasy per se.
I would say Carrie is sci-fi. I would say every horror in here has a strong fantasy or sci-fi element. I mean, that's what has always drawn me to horror. I don't particularly subscribe to super realistic stuff. I guess, okay, that's not true. So I think The Stranger Upstairs doesn't have any fantasy aspects to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it maybe hints at it a little bit, like a paranormal aspect. But yeah, okay. So if somebody liked horror, but they were on the fence about a fantasy or sci-fi version or elements, I would say the Stranger Upstairs. But they would have to like haunted house stuff, right?
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I was just trying to remember what was that book about, and it's the influence in the haunted house. Isn't it?
Yep. Influencer in the haunted house. Great character. Great character work. Yeah.
And what about the even the lucky numbers? Has that got much in the way of?
Yes.
Oh, I suppose you don't want to spoil it, do you?
Yes, that is a fantasy book.
Yeah. Okay. And the other question we've kind of already sort of covered, which is only to authors, but it's like, well, I ask them anyway. What have you got in the future to like? What? Obviously, you're writing Death and the Rainbow Empire at the moment, and in the process of releasing it on Amazon Bella. But have you got any books beyond that you want to write, or is there? It's like a passion project. What would be the ideal book you would want to write at some point in the future that you're working up to? Is it the Portal, vampire, horror, sci-fi, time travel book, or something like that?
Oh man, all of the above. Well, if I could write the book, everything all at once, no. Not that. But right now I'm finishing, so I'm working on this as a series. And this series right now is going to be the same character who's from a small town, who keeps on who discovers like a demon underworld. And this demon underworld, she brushes against it in every single book, and each time she does, there's progression game elements to it, and there's horror elements to it, and she ends up, like, over time in these books, deteriorating in some ways, but also growing in other ways. So that's my favorite. I always like the type of books I like have this like aesthetic of super like bright and maybe a little like girly, but not really, but super bright and game but like infused with a lot of darkness and horror. If I had to explain that kind of aesthetic, I would explain it as if you've seen Wednesday from Netflix, that series, or maybe Beetlejuice, that contemporary horror with strong fantasy elements to it, except my version will have very a lot of progressional game elements to it. That's the difference.
So it sounds like you've got almost like this very specific niche of the intersection of horror, lit RPG, and fantasy, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
So, and once you find the right readers, it should go gangbusters, hopefully. And hopefully it's not just you, that's the only person in the world who likes it. Which I can't.
I think, I think it's a niche that exists, but it's not really popular in books. I don't see it a lot in books. In fact, when I look up dark fantasy, it's what you end up finding is spicy romance in fantasy environments, and that's like I'm not really interested in writing fantasy or romance. No, I have no issues with it. I'm just not interested in writing it or really reading much of it. But yeah, I think the niche exists, and the reason I think it exists is because shows like Wednesday exists, is because Beetlejuice is getting a rekindling. So it's really that aesthetic that I'm going to try to lean into, and hopefully the wave of people who like that will find me eventually.
Yeah. Well, that's I mean, I find it's a lot of self-published authors, especially, tend to almost try and write to market when they have like vampire romance is the latest thing, so they write a vampire romance, but despite not really being into that genre. Where it is harder if you write the book you're really passionate about.
That's for sure.
Because you're not necessarily, it's not easy to find another book that you can just like a series of books, but ideally, if you work on your marketing side of things and your taglines,
yeah. So hence my marketing exercise here. Yeah, I'm trying to grow to love marketing one-liners.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and hopefully your one-liners will help push you with the other books.
I hope
because
so.
I try and upload them onto Amazon when I've actually added them in properly, and it only gives you 60 characters to put a thing on. So I think your one-liners might be too long for some of them, but what I've been taking is the transcription, shoving it into Copilot AI and saying, write me a 6-character description of this.
That's a smart idea. That's actually brilliant.
A lot of the time it doesn't, and sometimes it gives terrible ones, but they're not actually too bad. Like it seems to be getting better at doing it, because it's quite hard to do it in 60 characters, because that's just like about 5 words.
Yeah. No, it's like tagging or getting the right keywords and stuff like that, especially in Amazon, is tough. And I'm hoping, because it's so niche, if I find the right ones, maybe. Do you have you ever used what's it called? It's the guy from Publisher Rocket, or is it called Publisher Rocket?
It is called Publisher. It used to be called Kindle Rocket, but they got sued by Amazon, I think. So it's called Publisher Rocket now. No, I haven't actually, but I do know a lot of people who've used it. So, and I have been tempted to do that. That's for anybody watching who's a writer, or just, it's a tool that you can use to look up keywords to put in your Amazon book descriptions, so that it says like LitRPG horror with puppets or whatever it is.
That's very specific. Somebody's gonna love it though.
Well, exactly. And it's like all these people could be just searching Amazon for LitRPG horror puppets.
Yeah, I've experimented with keywords for my own type of niche, and there's not a lot of high searching right now for it, but I knew that when I started writing it, and
Right. Well, I'm
I'll catch a
put up
wave
your
one of these
Amazon.
days.
Anybody who's watching on a visual medium will see the link to the Vela page at the bottom here. I will put it, assuming I remember, I will try and put it on the YouTube description as well so that people can do it. And if you're listening on a podcast, then I'm not saying that selection of characters. You'll just have to search for Jeyla Briar. Jeyla space Briar, and it should come up on Amazon Vela somewhere, hopefully.
Yep.
Well, thanks so much for being the guest this evening, Jeyla, and
Thanks
it's been
for
great
having
to
me.
talk
This
to
is
you.
a lot of fun.
And yes, it's a whole different realm of books from what most people, apart from Carrie, which has been recommended, which is why I dropped it off the list, because I've got this little spreadsheet, and if it's a duplicate book, I kind of could just reference the previous one, and sometimes I miss it out of the other list. And it's like,
Yeah,
all
I'm a weird girl.
Yeah. No, well,
Weird choices.
well,
But
that's the thing. It's like the books one person likes are not the same as you would think on a show like this. And I've done I think this is like 58th episode I've done of this. I confused everybody by doing seasons, but very few duplicate books usually. There's a few that have come up a lot, but even then, there's not like that many. There's a few like Man's Search for Meaning and the Four Agreements have come up a lot of times. Carrie's come up quite a few times. But in general, people like different books. So don't ever think that your interests are any worse than anybody else's. There could be somebody watching this and be like, oh my God, they get into this and they're like, they become your super fan. So,
oh man.
Yeah.
This is a dream.
Anyway, thanks so much for being the guest. And for the people watching on Amazon and people in the future watching on YouTube, anybody watching on LinkedIn, thanks for watching. And anybody listening on the podcast, hopefully you're not too confused. So I'm going to finish the show now.
Bye.